Episode 1 starts off with the story of a once confined Quincy king, who now has regained his pulse after almost 900 years, control over his mind after 90 years, and finally his strength after 9 years. The scene ends with a man smiling into the darkness, warning signs ringing in the background, with everyone panicking except for two men who make their way into the Soul Society by an elevator. The leader asks his subordinate what the suture scale is at and is told it has reached a critical category level 4. He is disappointed for not being alerted sooner. It seems that hollows are disappearing at an immense speed, and this has alarmed everyone in the Soul Society. The leader, who is the third Sita Khan, looks at the screen which displays the location of the hollows disappearing and says that this is the doing of one person only. We are now transferred to Karakura town and see two people named Shino and Ryunosuke walk out of a portal. They are instructed by their supervisor to kill off the hollows and keep the town safe before the portal closes. Ryunosuke is more scared than he could imagine being in a new town, the threat level of the situation, and if he could live up to everyone's expectations. This pisses Shino off, and she, with her bold tomboyish way, encourages him to get a grip of himself by yanking his shirt. To make matters worse for poor Ryunosuke, she suggests that they split. She will cover the north side while he covers the south side and leaves. Ryunosuke sits on top of a bridge in the calm dark night. Everything seems very peaceful until he hears a creak behind him. Scared to his wits, he turns around and is met with the demonic stare of a spider-like hollow screaming at the top of his lungs. Ryunosuke runs for his life and tries his best to call Shino, but she doesn't answer his calls. The hollow chases him left and right like a dog in a cat chase. Ryunosuke rushes inside a building and reaches the roof, only to find Shino's unconscious body dangling in the palm of two monstrous hollows. Fate had other plans for these two. Mustering up some courage to fight, Ryunosuke tries to save Shino but is caught by a surprise from behind by the hollow looking like a spider. Drowning in his own blood, his last words are a prayer to not die and to be given another chance. The hollow towers over him, ready to put him out of his misery, but before that could happen, the hollow is killed. Luck was on Ryunosuke's side as backup came to save him from the Grim Reaper's hold. A beautiful female named Orihime provided him and Shino first aid so they could live, and now it is showtime. The main protagonist has arrived with his group of fearless fighters, standing like a pure boss with his face full sword Bankai on his shoulder. Go gives orders to finish this fast. Orihime brings out a protective shield and pushes the hollow away, followed by Yasutura, the man with the iron fist who punches the living daylights out of another hollow. Yoro Eshida is not one to shy away with his arrows and pinpoint accuracy that pierces the heart of every hollow he sets his eyes on. And finally, blocking one hollow's attack with his blade, he, with one word, Bankai, eradicates the very existence of 1,000 hollows. Electrifying power takes up the sky, and every hollow trembles under his extreme power that shows no mercy. Ryunosuke, amazed by the spectacle, asks him who he is. To it, he calls himself the substitute Soul Reaper. Ryunosuke wakes up to find himself in such a room. Seconds later, Orihime enters with a tray of bread and offers it to everyone except who pisses her off by saying it was stale. Ryunosuke is a bit taken aback by everything and is told by to get back into his gigai. Shino also enters the room and embraces Ryunosuke with a heartfelt punch. Yes, that is her way of showing love. Nonetheless, as their friendly environment is interrupted by a man in a hollow mask who keeps taunting. Sick of his behavior, Shino kicks him off his bed and follows him outside, asking him if he is an Arrancar. The man loses his nerves and shows a small bracelet before summoning a Quincy. This gets attention at the Rukon district. Squad 11, 5th seat, are searching the whole area for people, but it seems everyone has disappeared into thin air except for one small area where it can be seen that there was one small footprint. We are now transferred to Squad 1 barracks in the head captain Shigekuni Genryusai's office. A group of white-clothed men enter and show their power by badly wounding his friend Sasaki. They proceed to warn the captain that in 5 days Seoul society would be annihilated by Wandenreach before disappearing into the shadows. Back to it, who dodges every attack by the masked man, having enough of his antics, Go summons his Bankai, which unusually gets the man excited. A cynical smile on his face, he, with a laugh, says that the sword is now destroyed but instead gets destroyed by himself by the overwhelming powers of the sword. Who tries to take him for questioning but instead, just like the other, vanishes into darkness in another dimension. The group who plundered the head captain's office arrives in a room. A man is already there, bowing in front, but gets mocked by the leader of the group. To this, the Quincy King cuts the group leader's arm off because he hates arguments. The king looks at all of them and asks to hear a report for their cause of peace. Shige and his friends are at a table discussing a survey they were given to fill out. How next time do take care and stay safe. A new term begins at the demon school, and Suzuki Irama-kun and his friends arrive at school just in time. However, Irama hopes he won't draw any attention to himself this term, seeing as he's a human in a demon school. He hopes to be so low-key that nobody notices him. Unfortunately, this is impossible due to the incident at Walter Park, where Irama and the other members of the Misfits class defeated a powerful being. This has caused the other students to idolize them. They all admire Irama more since he had contributed greatly to the beast's defeat. On their entry into school, the students follow them, calling out their names. They, however, find their way away from the students and join the other members of the Misfit class in the Royal One, the king's classroom set aside for her special students. Unfortunately, the teacher in charge of the class is Emperor Doom and Gloom. He informs them about the activities that the new term will bring, which could enable them to rise in the ranks. However, that wouldn't be the case for them, as he tells them they are not normal students in any way. This gets them to wonder just what exactly he means. Then he brings out a rolled paper, which loudly announces to them that they will have to reach Dali rank before becoming second year. They find this to be extremely shocking since Dali rank is their rank just before graduation. Achieving this in the first year would be almost impossible. However, they are further told that not achieving this will mean they will have to leave the Royal One. Hearing this, they are shocked and find this to be utterly impossible. To calm them down, Emperor Doom and Gloom informs them that they will not be made to achieve impossible tasks to achieve the Dali rank. Instead, he signals the arrival of some special tutors whom he says will be their mentors in their bid to achieve the Dali rank. He assigns each tutor to 2 students, leaving just Irama-kun and another student with Emperor Doom and Gloom. They are shocked at the thought of this. However, he tells them that he wouldn't be doubling as a tutor since his job entails just assigning the tutors to them. Then he reveals their tutor to be a newbie who seems playful. At the end of the normal classes, the tutors charge into the king's classroom, with each taking the 2 students they had been assigned to teach before leaving. Irama-kun, Asmodeus, and Clara exchange goodbyes, with each promising to not forget the other and become better by their next meeting, which weirdly is the next day, seeing as they acted like they would be gone for a very long time. The students begin their lessons with their specific tutors, with each of them promising to make the most of the abilities they uniquely possess. Meanwhile, this doesn't seem to be the case for Irama-kun, whose tutor doesn't seem to understand what he needs to do. On their way to the training location, Irama-kun sends a text to Amarazan, apologizing for not being able to attend their reading sessions for the time being. She, however, understands against him and hopes that she gets to see him soon. On the other hand, Irama-kun's tutor admits to not knowing what to do. Instead, he seeks the help of a relative of his named Bashiko to teach them about what having a fighting spirit entails. When they meet her, she is angry that they had kept her waiting and decides to do the same as punishment for her 2 new trainees. Then she reveals to them that she has only agreed to be here based on Irama-kun's grandfather Sullivan's request. At that moment, they realize just how good she must be and beg her to teach them instead of leaving them to their clueless master. She, however, listens to their plea but on the condition that they treat her like a mentor if they want her to be theirs. To do this, she gives them stressful and frustrating tasks. With no other choice, they go ahead with whatever she asks them to do, and eventually, she decides to train them. Do you think the students of the Misfit class will ever be able to attain the Dali rank? We'll bring you that and more when the next episode is released. For now, kindly like this video and subscribe to our channel to get more anime recaps just like this one. Until next time, do take care and stay safe. Nishino-sen wakes up from her sleep and goes into the shower to have her bath in order to prepare for school. While she opens the door to leave, she has a vision of a brief flashback, and this makes her scared. Her driver calls her attention, and they head to school. When she gets to school, she is greeted by her friends. She heads to the hallway and there she meets Kajino-kun, whom she despises because he always had a way of pissing her off. Kajino seems pretty aware of this, but it doesn't seem to bother him to piss her off once again. He calls her a name that isn't hers, and while she tries to correct him, he doesn't pay her any attention. She becomes angry and yells at him, calling him a jerk. Meanwhile, in the classroom, her classmates come to meet her and ask about the show she's featuring in. She, however, seizes the opportunity to boast about her goals to them. At break time, she goes to the washroom. While there, she looks at herself in the mirror, and this causes her to remember an incident that happened in middle school and how this had led her to start hiding behind a mask. Back in class, her teacher asks if anyone would want to volunteer for the school festival, and Nishino raises her hand. However, her teacher declines her show of interest, saying that she has makeup lessons. Hearing this, her other classmates laugh at her and mock her with how busy she always is. Eventually, the teacher goes ahead to pick Kajino, who accepts to volunteer right away. Now sad, she sits in class and is haunted by the thought that she has always been acting in a way so that her teacher and everyone would love her and not hate her, but this didn't seem to be the case. After school, she calls her driver to come pick her up, but he does not pick up her call. Unfortunately, at the time, he is getting beaten up by some thugs who cause him to bleed. Kajino watches from the top of the school and sees Nishino-san walking home on her own. On her way home, she feels that someone is following her and she looks behind to see an unknown man behind her. Thus, they answer to run. While running, she was obstructed by a vehicle, and two other men came out of the car, catching her. They take her into the car and make her unconscious. After a while, Nishino wakes up in a building and finds her hands and legs are tied up. She struggles to free herself, and at that moment, she sees two men in front of her and listens to them as they mock her and tell her that her father has a lot of enemies and they have sent a ransom note to him. Later on, one of the men tries to rape her and tells her that he knows of her past experience. Furthermore, he reminds her of the last time she was kidnapped and promises to give her a new experience. He proceeds to tear the bottom of her shirt, and she struggles to free herself. Meanwhile, Kajino had seen her being taken earlier, and in a bid to save her, he positions himself outside the abandoned building and changes into a new outfit in order to not be recognized by Nishino. He puts on a mask after that he breaks in and kills the man who tries to rape Nishino. Then he proceeds to fight the other huge man as he learns that the man was formerly a member of the army. Kajino beats up the man and cuts his hand with a crowbar. Eventually, he kills the man and walks towards Nishino, who is now very scared. He sets her free and tells her to be more careful when she's walking home, after which she disappears and surprisingly, she's unable to see him again. Nishino goes home wondering who her savior is and reports the incident to the police. However, due to her father's influence, the police never get to know what happened in the building that night. The following day, Nishino-san goes to school like nothing had happened the previous day. When she sees Kajino, she reluctantly greets him, and this time he gets her name correctly. To her greatest surprise, she also notices that he is looking directly at her, and she becomes bothered. The next day, Kajino is reported to have been absent from school. Nishino is intrigued by his absence and finds herself thinking about him more than she'd like to admit. She wonders who he really is and what his intentions might be. As days go by, Nishino finds herself constantly looking around, half expecting to see Kajino somewhere nearby. One day, as she's walking home from school, she notices a familiar figure standing at a distance. It's Kajino. He's back, and he's watching her again. This time, Nishino decides to confront him. She walks up to him and demands to know why he's been following her. Kajino, with his usual nonchalant attitude, tells her that he was just making sure she's safe. Nishino is not satisfied with his answer and continues to question him. She asks about the incident at the abandoned building and how he knew about it. Kajino evades the question and changes the topic, asking her if she's really as tough as she pretends to be. This angers Nishino, and she challenges him to prove himself by fighting her. Kajino agrees to the challenge, and they engage in a brief but intense fight. Nishino is surprised by Kajino's strength and skills. She realizes that there's more to him than meets the eye. The fight ends in a draw, and Kajino walks away, leaving Nishino bewildered and intrigued. Over the next few weeks, Nishino and Kajino's interactions become more frequent. They often find themselves crossing paths, and Nishino discovers that Kajino has a complex personality. He's not just a troublemaker, he has his own struggles and secrets. As they spend more time together, Nishino begins to see him in a new light. One day, Kajino opens up to Nishino about his past. He tells her about his difficult childhood and the reasons behind his rebellious behavior. Nishino realizes that they have more in common than she thought. They both wear masks to hide their vulnerabilities and insecurities. As their bond deepens, Nishino and Kajino become friends. Nishino learns to let go of her need for perfection and embraces her true self. Kajino, on the other hand, finds solace in Nishino's company and starts to believe that he can change for the better. The school festival arrives, and Nishino decides to participate despite her initial reservations. With Kajino's encouragement, she puts on a performance that showcases her talent and passion. The audience is impressed, and Nishino feels a sense of accomplishment she's never experienced before. After the festival, Nishino and Kajino spend more time together, helping each other overcome their personal challenges. They support each other in ways they never thought possible. Nishino's friends notice the positive change in her and wonder about the person responsible for it. As the school year comes to an end, Nishino realizes that she has fallen in love with Kajino. She confronts him about her feelings, and Kajino admits that he feels the same way. They decide to face their futures together, breaking free from the masks they've been wearing. The story ends with Nishino and Kajino walking hand in hand, ready to embrace whatever